All right, welcome once again to today's Tuesday training, and today is the Microsoft Dynamics 365 July update preview. Want to welcome everybody to our session this afternoon. I think you're going to see a lot of great content and some really exciting innovation that Microsoft's building into the platform. So just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. I'm Dave Buggy, the president here at Strava Technology Group. My contact information is here on the screen for you, so if you'd like to reach out about any of the content today or really anything related to Dynamics 365, feel free to do so. Also, this session today will be recorded. If you'd like to go back and review any of the portions, or if you have someone that you feel might benefit from watching the webinar today, after the session, you will get an email with a link to the recording, and feel free to share that. Everybody is in listen-only mode. If you'd like to ask a question, we do encourage that. Please do so via the Q&A client in your webinar client. We, again, really like it to be an interactive session, so feel free to ask questions. We will be pausing and taking questions, and also leaving questions or time for questions at the end, rather. So please engage. A little bit about Strava Technology Group before we get started. We're 100% focused on customer relationship management. It's all we do. We do have a lot of partners that we can bring in for infrastructure and other things, but we're 100% focused on CRM. We have a staff of senior level resources with many years of Dynamics CRM and Dynamics 365 experience. We also have a lot of experience with both the cloud-based deployment model as well as the on-premise deployment model. We still do a lot of work with the on-premise model, so if you're on-premise, we can certainly help. And I always like to say that we go deeper than just the technology to provide solutions to real business challenges. So the first commercial today that we'll talk about is if you like what you see and you want to plan to get your system upgraded, maybe you're on-premise and you're a few versions behind, or you are online and you want to make sure that your system is ready for the July update or any other update that's going to be coming down the line for that matter, we can offer expert upgrade services. And we start by analyzing your current system for upgradability. We look at customizations, we look at integrations, we look at reports and workflows. And if you're on-premise, we also do a review of infrastructure to make sure that all the versions and the infrastructure items that are needed for the newer versions are accounted for. You can also do a full upgrade on your system and help you with adoption of the new functionality. There's just a ton of great stuff that's coming into the Dynamics 365 platform. And sometimes things get overlooked, and maybe businesses aren't as in tune with how something could be applied to their business process. So do a lot of work with helping businesses adopt the new functionality that's being deployed in the product. We also offer user documentation and training as well, and also ongoing support. So if you are thinking about an upgrade and would like some assistance, even just to chat about upgrade and kind of the process for going through an upgrade, feel free to reach out to us. Easy way to do that is just send an email to info@stravatechgroup.com, and we'd love to talk about your upgrade. A little bit about today's agenda. We've got a lot to cover. We're going to have to keep moving pretty quickly. It was quite honestly very difficult to take all of what's happening in the July update release and pack it into an hour, but we've done that. We feel like we've got the most, maybe popular content. Some of the stuff that we'll have to leave out for another session. But we do feel like we're going to cover the highlights for sure today. So we're going to take a look at the Dynamics 365 roadmap. We're going to look at the release cycle for the July update. We're going to look at the user interface updates to both the web client as well as a new unified client that's being introduced to the platform as well. Going to look at the new features around activity timeline. Going to take a look at Live Assist for Dynamics 365. If you haven't seen that in action, I think you'll really like what you see with Live Assist today. Going to talk about mobile updates to the platform, the LinkedIn Sales Navigator integration, the business edition that's forthcoming, as well as virtual entities, which are an exciting new type of entity that's being released in the platform with the July update. So look at the roadmap in terms of what Microsoft is investing in over the next year. These are the real pillars of where they're placing their investment in the product. First it's always on user experience, and they've had this as a pillar for a number of years, really going all the way back to 2013 is when they really put user experience as a pillar that they include in just about every update that they perform. So it's going to be introduced as a new user experience. There's going to be updates to the web client, and as I mentioned, there's also a completely new unified client that's going to make the user interface consistent across all devices. On the customer insight side, definitely more innovation in this area. This is kind of similar to machine learning and artificial intelligence. Well, not kind of, but it is. And it's the ability to take data from across your enterprise and help make intelligent predictions based on that data. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Relationship sales, bringing the power of social selling and networking into Dynamics 365. We're going to take a look at the LinkedIn integration that's only going to get better from here. The business edition is going to continue to evolve and develop, and also a number of enhancements across the platform. Really just a lot happening within the Dynamics 365 product as a whole. One thing I wanted to point out is if you're not familiar with the roadmap site, definitely worth taking a look at. I visit it quite often. It's a publicly accessible website that tells you all the features and development that's being done in the platform. It'll show you what's new in the current version, what's in development yet to be released, and what also has been previously released. Some of what you'll see today, you'll be able to get status out there on this roadmap site to see when the features that you're gonna see and hear about today are gonna be released. So you'll see that they're in private preview, they're in public preview. You'll see when they go general availability, etc. So it's just roadmap.dynamics.com. Really informative site, and definitely suggest you take a look if you're not familiar with it. So the release plan and strategy that Microsoft is going through with what you're going to see today is they're going to go through a cycle of releasing things in private preview, and that's going to be continually updated as features are released. So rather than a waterfall update like a lot of the past updates where you just get everything coming at you at one time, they're going to continually add the functionality that we're going to talk about and look at today to the private preview. Now, most of it will get launched to private preview, but some may go direct to generally available. So you just have to watch, for information. We'll be publishing quite a bit of information about what is being released and how to get it. And it is a staggered release model. So it's going to go through private preview, it's going to go through public preview, and it's going to go through GA or generally available. It's also the new, if you go in and you spin up a new tenant within Dynamics 365, they're going to get that new functionality ahead of releasing it to existing customers. And it's a little bit harder to release new functionality for existing deployments than it is for new, because you might have customizations and things that have to be further tested. So again, back to our ability to review your system, certainly can do that for you and tell you if there's any issues with updates that you might have going forward. So let's start with the user interface, always something that everybody's very interested in seeing what's happening from a user interface perspective. So first, we're going to talk about the existing web user interface. So you're probably all somewhat familiar with this, depending on the version that you're on. If you're on an older version, it probably looks very different to you. But if you're on a current version, this probably looks pretty similar to what you have. And there were a lot of challenges that that this version of the user interface had or has. And based on top customer feedback, Microsoft has solved these challenges in a huge way by making a lot of the updates to the web interface, and then we're going to talk about the unified client as well. So the top requests from customer feedback were that there were too much white space on the screen as a whole. So there's a lot of unusable white space here. For example, in the activity timeline, right now there's no information shown there, but it takes up a big portion of the screen because there could be information that would fill in that area of the record as time goes on. So they've gotten smarter about how to utilize that state of being empty, what's called an empty state. So that's an empty state, and that would be handled a little bit differently than the other areas of the record that actually have data in them. So white space been reduced, inability to wrap long text. You've probably all experienced this if you're on one of the more current versions, where you have a long field label and unfortunately it just gets truncated or cut off and you have to highlight it to kind of see the whole field description. That's been resolved. Some headers that were being cut off. You see up the top here in the top portion of the record that's truncated. And there weren't really intuitive controls over input of data. So you can see that, the fields here that need data input just have a couple of dots there. So not really intuitive to the end user. Also, they felt like the record was missing a visual hierarchy, which we'll take a look at in a minute. They felt like, the sections of the record were not as intuitive as they could be. There were definite inconsistencies in columns and column spacing, inconsistent fonts, etc. So that's kind of current state today. And looking at what they've done to the web client in the user interface update, you'll see that it's a whole lot cleaner. So it's got a lot of uniformity across all the different areas of the system. It's got some styling content similar to style sheets on websites that will flow across the entire application. That there's text wrapping now, so you won't have the issue of the field labels and that being cut off. There's standardization around fonts, reduction of the white space, and then also the further ability to theme the product. So I think it was back in 2013 that they offered the first ability, maybe even 2011, to start adding your logos and things, and then that enhanced with the ability to add colors. You'll notice now that on every entity, you have control over how that entity looks, what kind of image it uses, what color scheme it uses, etc. So some really good theming updates to the system as well. So let me just jump over here and show you what the new user interface looks like. So I'm just going to go over here and we're going to start in dashboards. So even in the dashboard side, you'll notice that it's been given now what's called a clipboard structure. So that helps control the spacing. It helps with add and removal of dashboard parts here and just makes it look a lot better. If you've worked within dashboards and creating dashboards, moving things around and getting them to look right and place them where you want these parts was a bit of a challenge. It was a bit of trial and error, right? So that's gotten so much better with the introduction of the clipboard structure. So we've also got proper spacing and font consistency across the different dashboard parts as well. So if we jump over here into a grid view, you'll notice the grid view has also been updated as well. So you'll notice that the spacing in top to bottom within the grid items has been increased to give a little bit more separation between the different records. The row height, in other words, has been increased, and just a general update to the look and feel of grid views. If I go into a record here, you'll notice in the record that it also has the clipboard structure. So you can see that the white space has been greatly reduced. It also handles things like the empty state that we talked about. So if there's an item on here that had a state of being empty, it didn't have any items in it, you'll see that it doesn't necessarily take up the entire spot that's been allotted for it on the record. So white space removal was something that probably was the #1 request from users that I would hear, is that getting rid of that unusable white space was #1 request. Also, so you've got consistency in fonts, you've got the text wrapping that we talked about before, and then if we go into a quick create, you'll notice that when I pull down the quick create and choose, let's say, contact, this has also been enhanced. And you'll see that from a visual perspective that fields that require data entry now have a complete dotted line across them. So it just makes it much more visually aware that you have data to enter in that particular field. And just a general update to the look and feel. Spacing's been addressed, as well as consistency around fonts and just the general look and feel of it. And then finally, the search, the global search here has been updated as well, and just gives you a better visual. It's again the clipboard structure, so you can see these little squares here are able to align things a lot more consistent across the screen here. So if we had maybe 5 columns of search results, they would line up nice and be even and consistent around fonts from entity to entity and so forth. So let's switch back here. There is also a unified interface that's being released. That is not yet released. We don't have a preview of that. However, it is going to be an application. You'll still be able to run the web client if you so wish. However, the unified interface is going to offer a lot of user interface improvements. So it's going to be reusable items. So as you develop, an item in one area, let's say a dashboard part, you're going to be able to very easily reuse those items in other areas. So reducing the amount of work that an administrator or a developer may have to do is going to be one benefit of the unified interface. Going to be able to develop things faster within the unified interface. You're going to be able to deploy it once and have it scale across the different devices that your users would use, so everything will be responsive out of the box. Accessibility, a lot of focus has been put on accessibility from the different device platforms, so things are going to look very consistent, whether you're on a desktop, whether you're on a tablet, whether you're on a mobile interface. It's all going to look very consistent. There's been a lot of work done too to the activity timeline. It's an area of the system that I use quite often, and definitely appreciate what they're doing here. So the activity timeline, if you're not aware, is in the middle of the screen. Let me just pull that up for those of you that might not be aware here. So if we go into a record, most records have the activity timeline in the middle here that shows you, the information about what's been happening with this record. So you've got, posts, you've got activities, you've got notes, etc. And that's the activity feed as it's known today. And that's going to be replaced by the activity timeline. And what's going to happen with that is it's going to now have combined activities. So including custom activities, if you have custom activities that you create, you'll be able to have those in the activity timeline as well, along with posts and notes all in a single view. So it's going to be really nice to have that all consolidated and not have to click across the different areas of the record to be able to see what's been going on as a whole with this particular record. So you can see here that pretty much everything that's been done on this record, phone calls, tasks, appointments, case resolutions, etc., is all showing up here in one place. It's going to replace the social pane or the activity feed and also the activity wall. There's a lot of names for this particular area of the system, but it's going to replace these on the legacy web client, and timeline control is what's going to take over here. So you'll start to see this roll out as the feature ends the preview mode. It does only appear on the unified interface, and it will not appear on the legacy browser client. So if you'd like to take advantage of this particular feature, then you're going to have to upgrade to the unified client interface that's being released. And it is available on the mobile and browser client as well. So again, no matter where you're looking at the system from, you'd be able to have a complete, consistent view or user interface by upgrading to that unified client. A couple more features with the activity timeline. I just love this area of the system. One is going to be that there's text and visual filters that are going to allow you to very quickly be able to filter down the results within the timeline. So if I only wanted to see, for example, posts, you'd be able to filter down that view to only that type of record and get to the detail that you're looking for very quickly. You're going to have inline actions on activities, like being able to take an activity, for example, and add it to a queue right from that timeline. You'll be able to close that activity from the timeline view, etc. Also be able to view all attachments and download them inline without having to open the record. So if you've got different things attached to a record, you'll see in the timeline, you'll be able to go ahead and grab those and open those without having to open the full record. And a really nice feature that a lot of our customers really enjoy, that we've had to write workflows and reports for in the past, which is what you missed. So very quickly get a view of what's changed within a record, what's been updated, what's been added since you last accessed that particular record. So really, really productive feature. Also, you'll be able to control the way the activity timeline appears in your system. So you'll be able to configure which types of activities, posts or notes show up in the timeline, or maybe you don't want them to, and the ability to configure what specific activities show up in the timeline as well. On the mobile side, the updates with the activity timeline are that you're going to be able to integrate camera, video, and audio attachments from within the mobile app. So real seamlessly being able to take pictures of receipts, or if you're out in the field and you're in service and you need to take a picture of a part or a machine, being able to do that in line within the timeline, utilizing the built-in camera and video and audio capabilities of the device that you're on. Finally, on activity timeline, there's a new timeline control that's being released for dashboards. So that'll be shown as a new option when you create the dashboard. The control is a replacement of the activity wall web resource, which you may be familiar with, and that was in the legacy web client. So you'll be able to take your dashboards and build the activity timeline functionality into dashboards going forward. All right, so switching gears for just a moment, there's a lot of updates that are happening with the Live Assist functionality for Dynamics 365, but I find that not a lot of people have actually seen what Live Assist does for engagement with, let's say, visitors on your website, or if you want to build engagement into a mobile app, etc. So Live Assist is made by a company called CafeX that formed a partnership with Microsoft. And what CafeX does with their Live Assist product is they offer a built-in integrated chat experience within Dynamics 365. So as people come to your website and maybe they want some more information, one of the ways that you can allow them to engage with you is via live chat. I'm sure everybody on the session today has used live chat at one point or another. The difference with the Live Assist product is that it integrates fully within Dynamics 365. So let's jump over here and we'll go to my live system, and I have somebody that's going to help me demo this. Matt, if you could go out and click on a chat request, that would be great. So anywhere you're at within the Dynamics 365 product, again, it doesn't matter. I could be on, activities, I could be in quotes, I could be in marketing lists, etc. This visitor activity over here is going to show up, and it's showing me right now that I have one chat request that's waiting for someone to service. If you have multiple users, then they're monitoring this, and the first person that goes out and accepts the chat or grabs the chat is the one that gets it, so to speak, right? So now that chat, you can see it's out of the queue, and I now have that chat live on my screen. So if I go in here, we can just have a chat, and it looks like Matt is very interested in artificial intelligence. And I was just reminded that you guys are not seeing this, so thank you very much for that. So you didn't really miss much. What I was saying is that the chat integration over here is available no matter where you're at in the product. So I could go over here and I could go into, leads if I wanted to, etc., and be able to interact with the chat visitors that are on the website. So it enables you to do that from right within Dynamics 365. So you can see here that I've got a chat in process. They show up here as an available chat when somebody goes out to your website. And it puts a nice little icon out on your website, which you fully control the look and feel of the application and your website. So if I pull over one of our landing pages here, you'll see that the live chat icon, it scrolls with the page, stays consistent with the page, etc., right? So it just looks real nice to your visitors. And now we have a chat going. So I can say, hi, I can certainly help. And we could go on and have a chat session. A couple of the other features that you have with CafeX product is that I can co-browse with the visitor. So if they're on our site, maybe they have a product question or they're looking for information, I could co-browse with them to point them in the right direction, help them get to the information that they're looking for. And I could also then just go ahead and end the chat with the customer. So I'm going to do that now. So close that chat. And the person visiting on the site gets a notification that that the chat has ended, and there can be pre and post chat surveys that you place on these as well. So if you want to know some information from the visitor before you even engage with them, you can do pre and post chat surveys. So that data now that happened as part of that chat stays and gets written in Dynamics 365. So I just go into my activities here, and I'll show you what a completed chat activity looks like. So we'll just sort here, get to our most recent interactions. There we go. So you can see that this top chat activity here gets written to the system, and that chat activity includes all the details of the chat session. So what user on your team grabbed the chat, the day and time. It's got an entire running history of the chat transcript and information as well about the session ID, the transcript URL, that if you want to go out and actually take a look at the full transcript, but it is included here within the completed chat record. So it does write all that information directly back into Dynamics 365. And there are a number of enhancements coming to the platform that are going to make it even better. So let's talk about those. So the updates that are happening, one is that in terms of the context of chat, you're going to get a much deeper look at information from this particular website visitor. So if they've chatted with you in the past, you're going to be able to see all the different chat sessions that happen. You'll be able to look at the transcripts. You'll be able to look at how long they spent in chat. You'll be able to see if there's any open customer support issues for that particular record. You'll be able to look at any survey information, information about the visitor, where they're based at in the world, browser type, etc. So a lot deeper information coming into the Dynamics 365 chat experience. You also have one-click actions for increased productivity. So you could have scripts, for example, that if you get a common question, you'd be able to build the response to that into a script and give your agents the ability to respond with just one click. Saves them time and makes them more efficient. Also, the agent widget is being completely updated, so it'll look different than what I showed you. It's a little bit more visually pleasing to the eye. And it's going to include keyboard shortcuts. It's going to have indicators for customer typing, whether they're typing or not. And you'll have visual and audio notifications as to what's happening. If a chat's waiting, nobody picks it up, you'll hear audio as well as additional visual indicators of chats that are out there waiting. Finally, you'll have full information via the chat activity, so very similar to what I showed you. However, they've added a lot more fields of information. So you'll be able to see if things were, if the chat was transferred to anybody, if there was any co-browse sessions that happened, etc. So more information is being captured as part of that chat activity as it's written back into Dynamics 365. Additionally, with Live Assist, there's an entire mobile SDK. So if you wanted to add chat capability to your own applications outside of, let's say, Dynamics 365, maybe you have a web app or another type of app, even a mobile app that you want to integrate chat with, you'll be able to do that with a very simple SDK. So it allows you to integrate chat functionality in these applications in just absolutely very short period of time. Hours, not days, and that's really very true. I've played around with it a little bit, and you can embed the chat functionality in an app in no time at all. Also, from a feature perspective, that it's a fully functional live chat. So if you build this into your website or any applications that you might want to build this into, it's fully functional. You actually have co-browse and even remote form filling. So if you wanted to help a user on your site fill out a form, you'd be able to, take advantage of that capability. And then also mobile notifications. I do run this on my mobile device as well, and find sometimes that even in off hours, people are researching and visiting our site, and I'm able to engage with them, and I'm doing that just by having my mobile device with me with the Live Assist software on it. Supported platforms on the mobile side are iOS devices, which are iPad and iPhone based devices. Also Android phones and tablets are supported as well. And then finally, chatbots. So if you haven't been following the trend with what's happening with chatbots, that's a huge area of growth within the technology space. And they say that chatbots are going to continue to be a huge area of growth for probably the next 3 to 5 years, if not longer. And basically, a chatbot is a computer that allows you to interact with and ask questions and actually have dialogue with. And the chatbot itself, has the technology that is able to read and respond to the requests from, let's say, a website visitor. So with CafeX's product, they're integrating, allowing you to integrate chatbots that are built on the Microsoft Bot framework. You can do things like skills-based routing. So as a chat comes in and maybe on the website you've captured some information in a pre-chat survey about what they're interested in or the type of problem that they're having. That would enable you to route that via skills-based routing to the best agents based on their skill set. From a supervisor perspective, you'd be able to monitor bot sessions and be able to kind of listen in, whisper, and even escalate those. So if you're seeing that maybe the chatbot is not doing the best job at answering the customer's question, you could jump in, grab that, escalate it, and get it to an actual live person to be able to handle. You also have agent escalation with context. So all the context of the chat that was happening with the bot would transfer to a live agent upon escalation. Full mobile support, and they also have a Facebook Messenger chat bot. I've actually used a few of these. I haven't, let's say, willfully gone out and used them, but I've seen people utilizing these Facebook chat bots, and pretty interesting. So when you get on one, being able to play around with it a little bit and just realize how far that technology's come is just amazing. Just amazing technology. So let's go through mobile updates. There's a lot that's happening within the mobile side of the application, and I kind of just condensed this all onto one screen. So we talked about the unified interface, and that's going to allow you to have the same look and feel, same interface that you would have on a full desktop version if you're using that unified client. So it's going to make consistent the user interface across all the different devices that your users may use to access the system. You're going to be able to do things like pinch and zoom on charts, something that you can't do today. So if you want to make a chart bigger or smaller, be able to zoom in on it, you're going to have that capability. There's going to be touch tooltips that'll help the user, with what they're looking at, the type of data that they're looking at. You'll have chart and list view in one screen, so the ability to combine both visual and list of records within one screen is new. You'll have a lot more chart types that you can utilize within the mobile client. The activity timeline, as we talked about, replaces the activity wall. There's been updates to the business process improvements on the mobile, so some things like workflows and Microsoft Flow components, as well as just an update to the look and feel of the business process on the mobile. Improved overall navigation, definitely something that I see in the forthcoming update and the unified interface just across the board, really intuitive. You'll have the full sitemap now on a mobile. So those of you that are customizers, you know what that is. That gives you the ability to really go deeper in terms of customizing the user experience. You will have that now on the mobile, which is new. You also have the ability to switch forms. If you've ever noticed in Dynamics 365, you can have multiple forms for a single record. So maybe you have a lead record and you want a couple different views of that record. You would typically do that by creating a couple different forms and then allow the user to select what form they would like to take a look at. It's the same record, it's just showing you different information. You'll now be able to do form switching on the mobile as well. So you'll be able to take that same experience and have that on the mobile. You also have what they refer to as a tabbed navigation, although it's not really quite tabbed. When you think of tab, you think of hitting the tab key. What they mean by that is that when you have a record that's got a lot of different information in it, rather than scrolling to the different areas of that record, you're going to have some quick access points that you can very quickly go from one area of the record to the other. Okay, so rather than just the scroll function, you'll be able to have somewhat of a tabbed navigation. You also have the relevant search with the filtering. We touched on that previously when we looked at the search functionality in the preview. That's also going to be ported down to mobile. You'll have complete forms now on the mobile. So rather than somewhat of a restricted library of forms that you would release out to the mobile, you're going to have the absolute complete forms that you would have when you're on a full desktop PC. Office integration on the mobile and having document recommendations as well. And then being able to capture images and notes with a location stamp. So if you've got remote users that are out in the field and you want to not only capture the information that they're putting in the system, but you also want to capture where they were physically at when they entered that, you're going to have a location stamp now available to you as well. So it'll provide you with location reporting on people as they use the mobile device. So a lot going on here, just a ton of updates, and this is really still kind of at the highlight level. There's some other things that we'll touch on towards the end, and then I'll also talk about a way you can get more information on all of the things we're talking about today. Also on the mobile, the relationship assistant functionality is being added to the mobile as well. I believe that may have already been in the mobile, but it's been enhanced in a couple of different ways. So you'll be able to, right on the mobile device, see what's happening, let's say on a sales overview dashboard. So to show you things like meetings that you have up and coming, or tasks or other schedule items that are coming up. It'll show you things like opportunities at risk. So let's say you have an opportunity in the system, and the close date, the estimated close date, is either very near or past. So that would indicate that that opportunity is at risk because it didn't close when the sales rep said it would close. So it's going to be smart in showing you some of those type of things. It also will show you some of the next best actions to perform. So on the third screenshot over here, you can see that it's telling you that there's been an issue that's been detected, and it's something that you might want to go take action on. So if that's for your customer, you might want to be very aware that there's been an issue that's happening with that account, and that there's a product delivery delay that's happening, right? So it's, again, intelligence is being sprinkled throughout the entire application, and that's just one example of how it's going to also come down to the mobile device. Embedded intelligence on the mobile, you're going to have a number of different items that are going to show you, based on intelligence, either things that are recommended that you do, or just things that you might want to be aware of. And that's going to happen with visual cues. So you can see that there's visual cues on records if their health drops below a certain point. Some of that's in the product today. If you have that turned on, you'd be able to see some recommendations based on what's happening within, let's say, a customer record. Now it's also on the mobile, going to give you visual indications as to the health of different records in your system. The offline component, let's say, of the mobile is also getting some updates. A lot of it is more on the back end, which is really, I think, kind of what you want when it comes to offline. You don't really want the user to have to think too much about whether they're online or offline. So it should just sense that, and it should be pretty seamless to the end user. So a lot of what's happening with the offline capabilities are really on the administrator or back end of the application, that you're going to have more control over offline. So what entities are able to be taken offline, user access to those entities, easy setup, being able to get set up for offline and deploy that. You'll have status info on the mobile, improved conflict management, and then also improved background sync as well. So we'll just take a quick second here to get set up here, and we're going to talk about the LinkedIn Sales Navigator integration as well. All right, so a lot of people have heard about obviously the acquisition of LinkedIn by Microsoft and what that is going to mean for CRM. Certainly, they're starting to add the integration between LinkedIn and Dynamics 365 into the product. This, by the way, is available today. You can actually go out and download the LinkedIn Sales Navigator integration, so you can have that in your system and running today. And when you look at a record in Dynamics 365, there's a couple of different areas of information that's going to be pumped in from LinkedIn. So one is going to be icebreakers, and it's going to show you the contact that you're looking at. It's going to show that person's highlights, their activities. It's going to give you an area of the record that tells you how to get introduced. So based on your connections and other things that are happening, it's going to show you ways that you might be able to approach this particular contact, maybe through a mutual connection, or even through some information that maybe came out about that person's company, right? So maybe that stimulates a reason for you to make contact. And then also related leads, so shows the potential leads who are similar to the person that you have up on the screen in the profile. So looking at a full screen user experience here, taking the example of Satya Nadella, who's the CEO at Microsoft, you can do some interaction directly with LinkedIn here. You could view his profile. You could save him as a lead in Sales Navigator. It's telling you over here related leads. So maybe there's some other people within that organization, or people that either I or Satya is connected to that we might have in common, and people that could introduce me to Satya. So based on some intelligence, it's going out and telling you who would be a good person for you to approach to potentially get connected with Satya. Also, just recommended leads in general, being able to have LinkedIn recommending to you some people that you may want to contact. In this case, we're looking at the Microsoft account rather than a certain person. And it's telling me some people at Microsoft that, based on machine learning overall in LinkedIn, is telling me who I may want to consider connecting to, or even saving as a lead in Sales Navigator for further pursuit. The synchronization that's happening between Dynamics 365 and LinkedIn is a couple different levels. We'll go through that. It's accounts and contacts that are automatically synchronized to LinkedIn and saved as leads and contacts. So I want to be very clear on that. That's synchronizing from Dynamics 365 into LinkedIn. So no longer do you have, let's say, your prospects in your CRM system, and you're doing prospecting on LinkedIn, and those worlds didn't connect, right? So what this is going to allow you to do is to synchronize information from Dynamics 365 over to LinkedIn, so you have a more common a database, let's say, of people that you're pursuing or accounts that you're connected to, etc. The leads get synchronized as suggested leads in Sales Navigator, and it gives you a badge to indicate that they're synchronized between both systems. Okay, so you'll be able to look at the record in LinkedIn, and it's going to tell you that whether it is in your CRM system or not. There is some data that's written back to Dynamics 365, but today LinkedIn does not support pushing any profile data to any other system. I'm not sure if you may have heard about that court case that was just going through the courts, where somebody was scraping it was an application that was scraping some information from LinkedIn, and that's in violation of LinkedIn's terms of service. So today, they do not support taking data from LinkedIn and pushing it into something like Dynamics 365. However, what we can capture is interactions that are happening in LinkedIn and bring that into Dynamics 365. So for example, if you're communicating with prospects on LinkedIn and you're using InMail, for example, then that information, as well as notes that you're taking on those leads in LinkedIn, can be synchronized over into Dynamics 365 and would show up on the activity timeline. This is actually showing a prior version of the activity feed, but would show up in either place, no matter which version you had, and allow you to see what's been happening, not only from just within the Dynamics application, but what is happening with messages and notes and things that are happening in LinkedIn. So again, this solution is available today. You can go out and download it. There's a really good instruction guide on installing the solution, getting it configured. We have it running here at our company, so if you do need any help with that, feel free to reach out. We'd certainly love to help, but you can go out today and download that. It does require the LinkedIn Sales Navigator team or enterprise level subscription. So there is a cost impact to that. You'd have to go out to LinkedIn and get some pricing information, but it does require the Sales Navigator team or enterprise to be able to utilize that LinkedIn integration. Another area of integration with LinkedIn, which I really like, is around lead generation forms. So a lot of you probably have lead generation forms just like we do on our website. Somebody comes to your website, they can fill out a form and they can get more information. That integrates with Dynamics 365 today. We're using Click Dimensions for that, and there's other ways to do that as well. But what's new here is that the ability to take lead generation forms that are being displayed inside of LinkedIn and have those integrate with your Dynamics 365 system. So basically what you do is you create lead capture forms in LinkedIn and you associate them with sponsored content. Sponsored content is LinkedIn's pay-per-click advertising vehicle. So when you create a sponsored ad on LinkedIn, there's a number of things that you can do to capture either clicks. In this case, we want to capture actual contact information from a form. So basically, the prospect would fill out the lead form. They would be warned that that data is going to be transferred to the third party. You're able to specify matching criteria in Dynamics. So if you want to match on email address or cell phone number, et cetera, to make sure that you're not creating duplicates of, let's say, leads that you already have in your Dynamics system, you'll have that capability. And the connector synchronizes the lead from LinkedIn right into Dynamics 365. So great way to capture contact details if you're doing some marketing on the LinkedIn platform. Availability, the Forms integration is available as a standalone solution that you can either use standalone, you can integrate with other applications that you might have, or is bundled with the Dynamics 365 for marketing platform. So if you have some interest in that, that's how you'd be able to get a hold of that functionality. So I want to take another pause just for a quick commercial break here on something that we have seen a lot of our clients getting a lot of value out of, is that we offer a tool that we've developed to validate email addresses in your Dynamics 365 system. It's called Email Verification for Dynamics 365. And I would argue today that email addresses are as important, if not more important, than a phone number, right? Because we all communicate so much by email today. The problem is that if you're prospecting, you have no idea when you're prospecting whether the email addresses that you're associating to a record in your Dynamics 365 system, you have no idea whether they're real or not until you go to send an email to them. A lot of times that doesn't happen until there's a marketing campaign, and then it becomes, a headache to manage lots of non-deliverables and bad emails overall in the system. So we have a tool that we've built. It verifies the email address in real time, and right within Dynamics 365, it's going to show you if that email address is legitimate or not. So it comes up with a couple different statuses here to indicate whether that email address is accurate. It'll say verified if it's able to verify the email address as legitimate and deliverable. It'll come up as risky for a couple of reasons. That does not mean that it's undeliverable, but it could mean that, let's say that particular email account is set up for an accept all, which means that it could be a marketing type of account at the other end, would still accept mail, but telling you it could be a little risky to send email to that particular address. Or it could come up and say not verified, and that is an indication that that email address is not good. It's a bad email address. It does write that status too, right back to the record in CRM, so you'd be able to do advanced finds and views on that data and be able to use that in your cleanup process. If you have some interest in that, again, we've seen clients be very successful with this functionality, and they've been able to clean up their data and also improve their email deliverability overall. So if you've got some interest in that, just shoot us an email at info@stravatechgroup.com. We'll be able to give you pricing and more information. All right, we're getting low on time, so we'll have to continue to move quickly. But a big topic that I know a lot of you are interested in, and a lot of people in general are interested in, is what's going on with the Business Edition. So just cover a little bit of background about the Business Edition. Right now, the version of Dynamics 365 that is in market is one of two versions. You can either license the Enterprise Edition, which has all of the CRM functionality, let's call it, or you can license the Business Edition today, but it only includes financials. Okay, so that's an accounting type system for small to mid-sized businesses. The CRM functionality has not yet been released for the Business Edition. That's what's forthcoming. So there's going to be two different available licenses for the Business Edition. One is going to be sales, the other is going to be marketing. So on the screen here, we have what capabilities are being introduced into the sales Business Edition license. So accounts and contacts, leads and opportunities, a quote to cash process, you'll have mobility, you'll have productivity, and they've done a lot of work to really simplify the setup process to get a small business up and running very quickly on the Business Edition. The marketing license for Business Edition is going to include email marketing, event management, a lot of productivity-based enhancements around marketing, the lead management, and dashboards and other types of intelligence that's being built into the marketing platform as well. So it's going to be a full-featured marketing, digital marketing solution for small to medium-sized businesses built on Dynamics 365. This is not, by the way, it's not Click Dimensions. And it is not, to my understanding, it's not another third-party product. It's something that Microsoft built in-house for the Business Edition. One of the things that they've done with the Business Edition is deploy a lot of functionality in the product that will make it very easy and fast for either a business to get set up or for a partner like us here at Strava to help a client get set up. So the benefit that I see to this from a partner perspective is that we're not utilizing the customer's investment in implementing CRM to do a lot of the slightly more technical types of things, right? So going in and configuring screens and importing data, et cetera. What we're able to do is we're able to get those kind of things done really quickly and utilize their investment in things like training and business process review and other maybe deeper configurations that they need in the product. So it's going to be, I feel, a benefit to both partners and customers. On the Business Edition, there's a guided exchange and SharePoint setup. There's Data Import Wizard to be able to get data into the product very quickly. And there's streamlined form and view customization, again, taking the heavy lifting out of those type of implementation functions and being able to allow the client to maybe invest in other areas like training. Enterprise capabilities that are not in Business Edition, very important to understand, is that there are some definite limitations that would certainly be impactful and really have to look over these things. And there's details that have not yet been finalized on the specifics of this. But what we can say is that that there will be a limit on things like custom entities and custom fields. So you'll be limited in how many of those that you can create. There'll be limits on customizable dialogues and actions and task flows, et cetera. Okay. You'll have the ability to do these things. You just won't have the same level of capability that you have in the Enterprise Edition. So Enterprise gives you unlimited custom entities, custom fields. That won't be the case in the Business Edition. You'll be limited on dialogues, actions, and task flows. You will have limits on the amount of custom workflows that you can have. You won't have full customization around dashboards and reports. You won't have app module customization, nor will you have goals, and you won't have territories either in the Business Edition. Additionally, you won't have the immersive Excel experience. You won't have the Office group integration, Yammer, or the OneDrive for business integration inside of Dynamics. You won't have recurring appointments, won't have auditing, won't have things like multi-currencies, multi-price lists. You won't have the email engagement or relationship health indicators that Microsoft is building in, nor will you have the relevant search. You'll still have a global search, but you won't have the relevant search that they're building into the Enterprise Edition. So definitely some differences. Some of the restrictions, again, this entire presentation is based on pre-release information. So these things, some of this might change, and there's some details that haven't been at least released yet, related to things like the number of custom entities that you'll be allowed to have, but there will be a limit. Same thing with workflows. There potentially will be a limit on the number of accounts that you can have in the system, and you'll have a limit on the number of apps that you can download and install from AppSource. Third-party apps like ClickDimensions will be restricted to use only those standard entities which are used by the first-party app that you've licensed. So if you've licensed the sales area of the product, then you would not be able to have a third-party app that's interacting with marketing lists, let's say. Okay, maybe not a great example, but basically, if you have a third-party app, you have to have access. The user has to have access to the different areas of the system and in the back end that third party is going to be, accessing as well. You can create your own new custom entities, but there will be a limit. Custom entities and workflows used by the standard apps, they don't count against the customization limits. The Unified Service Desk is not going to be available to Business Edition, which makes sense because there isn't a service or customer service license available on the Business Edition, at least not yet. And another big item here that I'm finding not a lot of people are aware of is that the Outlook client will not be available either. So that'll definitely be an area that people that are evaluating the Business Edition need to look over and just make sure that these restrictions aren't going to be problematic. Finally, I want to talk about virtual entities, and we'll go ahead and start to wrap up and take some questions. Virtual entities are a new type of entity being released in the system. A virtual entity basically can read external data at runtime in the Dynamics 365 client and the SDK. So if you think about how you're interfacing with data today, you're probably either doing bulk loads of data, you're doing real-time integrations with maybe products like Scribe, Cozy Rock, etc. Maybe you have iframes that you're popping out on a record. Virtual entities are going to allow you to integrate data from other systems pretty seamlessly into Dynamics 365. It also eliminates duplication of data. So if you've got data that you're bulk loading or you're integrating with, that data exists in another system. So you're effectively duplicating that data as you bring it into Dynamics 365. It will ship with a data provider for OData endpoints, so there's no customization needed there. Additional data providers are being developed, and you'll be able to develop your own custom endpoint integrations as well. And create similarly to other custom entities. There's really just a checkbox that tells that it's a virtual entity, and then you put some information in related to the data source. So we are definitely excited about the virtual entities being introduced into the platform. From an integration perspective, that's definitely going to be a game changer. So just a few other important enhancements that are happening here. For one, portals, you did not have the ability to do deep levels of customization in portals because you didn't have the source code. So the source code is now going to be provided for portals. So you'll be able to go in and do much deeper level of tailoring or customization to the portals area of the product. The Outlook add-in has been deprecated. So if you're using the Outlook add-in today, you really want to start taking a look at the Outlook app, which is much lighter weight, much less problematic. The problem there is that the Outlook add-in was how you would get offline functionality for a lot of users. So going forward, what you're going to be able to do with that is you're going to be able to use that new mobile or unified client and be able to take data offline in that client pretty seamlessly. The Word mail merge and SharePoint list components have been deprecated. So if you're using either one of those, there is new functionality that's taking the place of both. There's enhanced activity monitoring and management. That's mainly on the admin side. So if you've got data compliance issues or just general data security sensitivity, there's a lot more being added to the application that's going to let you manage data, access to data, and be able to look at what people are doing within the system. Even admins, you'll be able to monitor what they're doing. You have enhanced integration between the operations, which is the financial component to Dynamics 365, the AR and AP, et cetera. You're going to have much deeper level of integrations between the operations functionality and the sales, marketing, and service areas of the product. There's enhancements across the business process area of the product, adding workflow in line with the business process, as well as integration with Microsoft Flow. And a big one is the multi-select option set, the ability to have an option, a field that has a list of values that you can select more than one value. Today, the way that you do that is typically that you have checkboxes, and that makes you create more fields, which take up more space, etc. So this is going to be a single field with a single drop-down that you can select multiple options if you need to do that. So let's go ahead and get geared up for questions here. Looks like we've got a couple on the board, so I'm just going to switch over and we'll start taking questions. So if you do have a question, please go ahead and post. Let's just get out to my Q&A. And it looks like my partners here have been answering questions as people go on. And let's see if there's any out here that haven't been answered. What is the time frame for release of Business Edition? Soon. I can't tell you exactly on that. They haven't released an actual date yet that I'm aware of, but from what I hear, it's probably going to be over the next month or so that it'll be released to market. Same thing on the unified client. There hasn't been a release date yet announced for that, but I also believe that that will be coming probably in the next month to 2 months, etc. Any other questions anybody wants to post? Looks like most of them have been answered as we went through the session. Finally, just our last commercial for the day. I want to thank you for joining us. If you need help supporting your Dynamics 365 or Dynamics CRM environment, we offer total solution management. We have capabilities across the entire platform. We do offer an all-inclusive service to administer your Dynamics 365 or CRM system. We can either come in and be your backup team to your frontline people. So if you've got administrators in place now and maybe they need some help, rather than hiring more internal full-time resources, we can fill those gaps. And smaller implementations, we can be your CRM administrative team. So if you've got some interest in how we can help you support your Dynamics 365 or Dynamics CRM environment, please feel free to reach out. I'll go ahead and just post my contact information back up on the screen here in case anybody would like to reach out. And like I said, everybody will be getting a copy of today's, a link of today's recording. We'll be sending that out shortly after the session. So I want to thank everybody for joining. Hopefully it was beneficial to you, and have a great rest of your afternoon.